Welcome back, movie lovers. Story recaps here. Today, we explore a story that revolves around three middle-aged friends, all mothers, who embark on a wild adventure during a vacation in the south of France. They decide to enjoy their freedom, rediscover their youth, and explore the exciting world of dating and romance. Movie begins with three friends, Cécile, Elise, and Sonia taking a road trip. Cécile is a mom and recently widowed. Elise is a divorcee and a mother, and Sonia has never been married. They are heading towards Cécile's beach house that they want to restore before new owners take possession. We see a bit of disagreement when Sonia breaks the news that she will be joining her boyfriend in Ibiza in few days. Next, we see someone was honking at them from behind. This makes Elise mad. She asks Sonia to take the wheel, and she flashes them as revenge for their rudeness. But that move backfired, as that car was actually a police car. Next, we see the three of them cooped up in the backseat of a taxi, and cracking up over the stunt they pulled. Next scene opens in Cécile's house. Cécile is feeling nostalgic as this was the first time she was back after her husband's demise. Cécile went on to show the girls their rooms. During that, on opening one of the room, they were terrified to see a huge pelican. Next morning, Cécile goes head-on with her plans for restoring the house. They have a tough time dealing with the pelican, but they give up eventually. Night falls, and the Elise expresses how bored she was. Sonia reciprocates similar sentiments and says that she would love sailing. They convince Cécile too, and the gang agree to go sailing. Next day, when they were having fun in the waters, they catch the eyes of two handsome young instructors. Meet Paul and Julien. Paul is surprised to be ignored by the girls. To fix that, he pulls up a weird stunt. He deliberately throws the kid in the water as a prank and calls for attention. Elise and Sonia rushes in and checks if the kid was okay. Kid was never in trouble in the first place. Anyway, Paul takes this opportunity and flirts with Elise. Elise was not completely offended, but was not giving in so easy. So she teases Paul and leaves the scene. Later on the beach, we see the girls basking under the sun. Sonia is talking to her boyfriend. Elise teases her by reminding her that her boyfriend has a wife and kids. Sonia ignores everything. We see Elise commenting on some woman's camel toe. Cécile recognizes her as Marie-Christine and tries to hide in an odd way, but fails. Marie-Christine spots her and calls her out. Their conversation was interrupted by another guy called Thomas. Elise shows some interest towards him. Thomas says that it was a bad idea for a jog in such a sunny day. Cécile kind of ruins the mood by bringing up how dangerous it can be at their age because of heart attacks. Thomas takes his leave soon after that. Later in the evening, we see Elise and Sonia trying to get in a bar, but the bouncer won't let them in because of their age. They decide not to argue because of the show she put on. Luckily, they meet with the pretty boys from their morning adventure. They had another friend with them. Meet Marcus. Marcus is friends with the bouncer and introduces them as his friends and took them in. They get in, pop in some drinks, and hit the dance floor. They were all having a fun time until the bouncer girl jumped in and started this dance battle with Sonia. From that, we learned that she has a thing for Julien, and seeing him with Sonia made her jealous. When Sonia asks him about her, he says that he does not feel the same way. After all that, they were chilling by the lounge, and Elise gets up to leave. Paul presses her to stay, even kisses her to convince. Elise was still playing hard to get and decides to leave after all. Next morning, we are at the beach again. We see Paul and Julien checking the girls out and praising their beauty. Later, we see girls and Thomas chilling at Cécile's place. The boys arrive shortly. They meet Cécile for the first time. Marcus and Cécile knew each other as he babysat her kids. Cécile invites them to the table. Seeing how well they go along, Thomas gets jealous and tries to bully them by calling them broke and police them with a condescending tone. Elise does not appreciate it and asks him to leave. After Thomas leaves, we see them having fun together. Later at dinner, they get to know each other more. Paul is a bit more outspoken than the rest, which kind of makes Cécile a bit uncomfortable, and she leaves. Marcus goes after her to make sure she was okay. Later, we see Elise and Paul dancing to slow music, and Julien is breaking ice with Sonia. Anyway, Sonia gets a call from her boyfriend accidentally. She learns that he was cheating on her, which makes her really upset. Cécile gets triggered from that and proposes to raid an ice cream parlor. Everyone was stunned as Cécile was supposed to be the quiet one. After the whole fiasco, we see all of them enjoying the ice cream. Car was too small for all, So Sonia and Elise were sitting on Julian and Paul. The road was bumpy and Julian was having an awkward moment. He asks to stop the car because he had an inappropriate accident. Marcus and Paul leaves with him too. After dropping the guys, the girls went skinny dipping. Everyone stripped and Elise and Sonia were surprised to see Cecile all cleaned up. After returning, we see that they had locked themselves out. They hear someone closing in, so they decide to get in through the skylight. They somehow wiggle their way in and calls it a night. Next morning, they see Thomas passing by. He drops in to apologize for his rude behavior the other day, but somehow messes it up even more. Poor Thomas leaves. Anyway, later, we see things really start to pick up between Elise and Paul, and they share some racy snaps for each other. Even Sonia jumps in for help. We see Cecile pretty upset on losing her bracelet last night and pours out on them and even asks them to leave at one point. However, later on, coming to her senses, she apologizes and they make up. Meanwhile, we see Elise getting another snap from Paul, which makes her sneak out and meet up with him. Next, we witness a steamy make-out session between them. Next morning, we see them collecting tickets for beach horse race. They were there just to watch until the crazy bouncer drops in. She calls them old and challenges them up front. Elise would not let that go and takes her up on that. The race begins, and we see beautiful women on horseback riding through the water. Cecile won the race and they quit the scene. Paul and Elise split to have fun on their own. Meanwhile, Sonia lets Julian know that she was leaving the next morning. Julian was upset on hearing that and finally tries to make his move. He climbs up to Sonia's room as a romantic gesture. Sonia was impressed, but still would not cancel leaving. Luckily for Julian, Sonia receives a text from Pascal canceling on her instead. That breaks her up, and she finally lets it go. And Julian gets the night he had been dreaming for a while now. Next morning, we see all of them having fun in the water. Cecile was not with them because she felt awkward. Marcus notices it and goes to give her company. They have a nice chat, and by the end, Marcus sees that Cecile is still not over her awkwardness about them being her son's age. He drops a hint by telling that he was not her son. This loosens up her a bit, and from then, we see all of them really getting along. Elise's daughter Nina comes to visit her. Later, we see Sonia talking to Elise that she felt guilty about using Julian as her rebound. She decides to break up with him, but instead, we see them making love. Julian has completely fallen for her and even proposes her to marry when he learns after climaxing inside her that she was not on pills. Anyway, Sonia laughs it off. Later, we see Cecile really embracing her friendship with Marcus. Elise has started to fall for Paul. When she asks if Paul would come and visit her after her vacation, he was a bit hesitant, which lets us know that it was just a casual fling for Paul. Elise realizes that. She puts on a brave face in front of him, but breaks up in tears when alone. Sonia consoles her and scene ends on that note. Next morning, we see all of them hanging out as usual, except Paul. He was missing from the scene. After last conversation with him, Elise gets the hint. Anyway, later at night, they all go to a party, and everyone was having fun. Even Cecile was loosening up. Meanwhile, we see Paul having fun with other girls in the party. Elise decides to clear the air between them. Paul comes clean, telling that it was really a fun fling for him, and he was not a committed person. He apologizes for everything and wishes Elise luck, and both part on good terms. On the other side, we see Julian trying to convince Sonia, but she isn't budging. That upsets Julian and he leaves. Sonia follows him and finds him on the edge of ridge. She begs him to get down as he was drunk and could hurt himself. On not able to persuade, she climbs up with him to share his fate. That scares him, and he decides to finally get down for her sake. Later, we see Sonia admitting that she did want a future with him, but was afraid for the social stigma. They hug it out, and the night ends. Early next morning, we are back at Cecile's house, and Elise was cleaning up. Suddenly, we see Cecile running in with the sledgehammer and taking down the wall. She wanted to do this for a long time, but since her husband was not aboard with the plan, she had dropped it. But she is not holding back anymore. This act is symbolic in a way, showing that Cecile has finally moved on from her past. Later, when they gather for breakfast, we learn that Cecile was not going to sell the house anymore. Nina innocently asks Marcus about where did he sleep last night, and Cecile blushes, which gives us a hint that they might have done it. We also see the pelican finally flying away, which was also symbolic, as it meant that they were finally ready to let go of their baggage and move on. And there you have it, the fun story of MILF. Through humor and heartfelt moments, it encourages viewers to break free from societal norms and embrace life's unexpected pleasures, regardless of age. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more exciting movie recaps.